Welcome to class. So today I want to look at the schema of post-colonialism. It is the easiest way to understand the post-colonial theory. I proposed the theory in 2016 when I attended a conference in Munich, Germany. The theory simply takes the post-colonial argument to another level where we do not have to debate who is to blame for the problems in Africa between the colonial masters and the new leaders in Africa. The theory simply states that we should, in a way, play down on colonial agency and emphasize the agency of African leaders because they are to be held responsible for the wars on the continent. And at the core of the theory is this schema that I have made. Now, so if you understand this schema, you are likely to understand post-colonialism. Now, this is how the post-colonial argument is structured. You have the West. The West here represents the colonial masters, the Europeans who came to colonize Africa. All right? They came to colonize Africa. So, in post-colonial term, in post-colonial terms, we call them the self because they are the loved, they are the accepted, they are the powerful, and in post-colonial terms, we also call Africa the other because they are the despised, they are the oppressed, they are the ones that are hated, the inferior part of the binary opposition. All right? Mind you, this is a binary opposition. The post-colonial schema is based on the binary opposition of self and other. Okay? Now, so the post-colonial theory recommends that we should suspend the West as far as agency is concerned in contemporary affairs in Africa. So when the West is suspended, we will now be able to pay attention to the other. All right? Of course, within the hermeneutics of new historicism, the other is also powerful and must be investigated. Okay? So the other is not only the despised, it's also a powerful structure that ought to be investigated. So what happens here is that Africa, the West is suspended poetically, all right? This suspension is a poetic suspension in the sense that we want to relegate the West to our collective unconscious. What should be in our conscious in our Africa that we have today? This is the past, okay? This is our consciousness. And when we pay attention to Africa, when we scrutinize Africa, when we investigate Africa, we will see that Africa is more than the otherness that it claims to be. There are oppressive structures in it, there are oppressors in this otherness. And you can only discover that when you use what I call the poetic gauge. I have an essay on my website, it's online, where you can look at what I mean by the poetic gauge. Okay, it's a way of investigating a structure to examine its constituents and the things that it entails, the oppressive nature. So when you give it a poetic gauge, Africa as an other, as the whole other, will split into these two structures. You have leadership and followership. Those are the two structures that will emerge from the otherness of Africa when it is given a politic gaze, when it is investigated, scrutinized, all right, critically. And so you have leadership and followership. And this is also another binary scale. In this binary scale, this is the path, because remember that whatever is on the left of the binary structure is powerful, all right? What is on the right of the binary structure is inferior, all right? So leadership, this time around, it is African leadership, no more the colonial master, it's African leadership. And we call it the New South, all right? The New South. So it is to the leadership that we will um, discuss whatever problem we find in the followership. All right? Keep in mind that within the context of new historicism, the followership is also powerful. All right? But conventionally, leadership is more powerful than followership. So whatever problem occurs in this structure will be linked to the state of leadership. All right, that is how post-postcolonialism works. So because this is already a new South, we are not going to investigate it further. We are going to pay attention to the followership, because that is where the where the oppressed structures are. All right. Now, the followership is the new order. All right. The followership is the new order, but it deserves more investigation. So we give it another poetic gauge. Give it another poetic gauge. When we give followership a poetic gaze, it will split into the oppressed structures on the continent. For instance, it will split into rich, poor, binary structure. Here, you can investigate the poverty in Africa, all right? And please note that all problematized structures in Africa are investigated against the dominance of the leadership. All right? So that is what post-postcolonialism is all about. If you're talking about poverty and hunger, the gap between the rich and the poor, we have to investigate the leadership, what they have done. There's probably something they have not done right. All right? Instead of going to blame the West, they are not more here. Right? They are left. So it's assumed. All right? So we do not do that. We think that it is counterproductive. Instead, we will hold our leadership to account. So, another structure that must be investigated is informed and uninformed, or educated and uneducated. Literacy, the problems in the education system in Africa could be investigated in this structure. All right. For instance, right now, Nigerian universities are on strike. You can investigate that against the dominance of the leadership. There's something that the leadership has not done. That's why the education system in Africa is the way it is. Right? So if anything has to change in these followership structures that have been problematized, something has to change in the new South in Africa, the leadership. And then you can also look at men, women, binary structure. Here you investigate gender issues, all right? The rights of women, right? And of course, the rights of men. You investigate patriarchy and its effects in society or on society. And the way we value women in Africa allows us to see them as the earth. So in this theory, there's room for talking about environmental issues under women as the earth. We can use the Mother Earth to interrogate environmental issues. So all environmental issues can be discussed, and that earth, represented by the way, how the earth should be valued, how the environment should be taken care of, so as to sustain us. Okay? And another one is adult-children binary structure on the continent. This is where you talk about children's rights in relation to adults, and you must understand that you must understand that um, children's issues are very important in Africa at the moment, and children represent the future. So if you want to talk about, anytime you want to think about the future of Africa, you think about it in terms of um, the metaphoric understanding of childhood and what it means for the growth and future of humanity. So these are all discourses. These are all discourses. You cannot really talk about them in one um, at a particular time. For instance, if you want to talk about the poverty in Africa, it's a whole discourse on its own, all right? And you can even create more oppressive structures out of this followership. And all of these are interrogated against the dominance of leadership. So that is how we are going to proceed now. Because in my last lecture, I ended on the note of pessimism, where I talked about post-colonial disillusionment. So somebody would have asked, how do we get out of that? And the answer is post-colonialism. We must interrogate our leaders and ensure that they do the right thing. Even if they have to go to the World Bank and speak truth to power, even if they have to go to the United Nations and speak truth to power, they are the ones to do it. And leadership is not only about the president, the governors, and all the important people. Everybody occupies a leadership position in society. And so um, everyone should be trained to be a leader or should have leadership consciousness. Whether you're a cleaner, whether you are the president, it doesn't matter. We are all leaders and we must understand our role. All right? So this is the solution to Africa's problem as far as I'm concerned. Hold the leadership to account. When we do that, when everything we talk about is how to interrogate leadership and put it into practice before you know it, we can go back to our summer, all right? A time when we are happy, or we can go back to, so let me not use summer, let me use African season, and go back to our benign, dry season, where everything is good and everything is worldwide, where everyone is happy. So that is the discourse on post-postcolonialism, and that is where my lecture for today comes to a close. I hope to see you next time. Bye.